Please, with joy, would you join me as I welcome to the stage this evening, Sekou Seasay. Thank you. Come on, put your hands together as I welcome Sekou to come up. And hello everyone, and thank you very much.
Pastor Ayo, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to be here today. I love assisting the African diaspora because what I see is that the average African doesn't have a professional holding their hands and really assisting them navigate the complexities of what is Australian economy. In my business, we pride ourselves on assisting people to be able to achieve valuable financial dreams. Now, there will be a lot we're going to be talking about today. The presentation is designed to cater for every possible scenario. I wasn't aware of the dynamics of the people who are going to be here, whether or not you already own your own house or you're looking out for something. So I've designed it in a way that I think there will be something that everyone can actually learn from. I'm joined today by my business partner, Nick Vutus. We are a diversified business group. We have accounting, taxation, real estate, and mortgage broking. Basically, what we do is we provide one-stop shop financial services. But I'm going to let Nick come over and introduce the first three slides of presentation. If you don't know Nick has been in the property game for over 20 years. He is what we call an old dog. He's an ex-developer. We met over maybe a decade and a half ago. And we decided to actually put our skills together to bring services to the Australian public that generally doesn't exist. So Nick.
Thank you, Sekou, and thank you, Pastor. Good evening, everybody. Whoever's here in person and whoever's joining us via the internet. Thank you all kindly for being here tonight to allow us to, I guess, present what we do, how we can do it, and how we can help you. What you mentioned, Pastor, earlier, I can fully relate. My parents were migrants here. They migrated from Greece in 1962, and I've seen it firsthand where the migrants from Europe worked hard, invested early, and they've reaped the rewards through property. And through that generation, they've been able to help us as their children, and we're also doing the same for our children. Property, we believe, is the best asset class to invest in today. It's been proven and continues to prove. Now, the agenda tonight, obviously I'll pass over to Sekou in a little while. Who are we and how we can help you? So there's 12 points that we're going to go through. Why property? Buy now or later. A couple of points there. Time in the market, not timing the market. The rationale for buying now. Point 4, how do you start? 5 is the government and government assistance that are out there. Types of properties, I guess that's where my specialty is in the property sector. And I'll just touch on that. Properties, we have pretty much, we cover Australia-wide. Primarily, we deal with New South Wales, Western Sydney, Central Coast, Lake Macquarie, and the Newcastle areas. Why is that? I grew up on the Central Coast. For 30 years, I spent my life up there. I've dealt with property there. I've started buying, renovating properties over 30 years ago. Ventured into some small-scale residential developments, and that was the springboard for me to invest in my primary residence. I was living at home, so I got involved in property from a young age. That allowed me, through the accumulation of several properties, to move to the Sydney market 20 years ago and buy my primary residence to house my family. So from there, that allowed me from there to start the process through equity gained in my primary residence to start venturing out again in property. So a broad range of properties are on offer through your standard 4-bedroom house and land packages, through to duplexes, dual keys, house and granny flats. So that'll come down to the individual's budget, serviceability, and the type of property that we can fit in that price point. Point 7, reducing tax via negative gearing. That can be a little bit complex for some people, but Sekou will be able to elaborate more on that. Point 8, the pecking order of gearing strategies. Again, negative gearing for which can create positive or negative income, or a hybrid. The concept of equity, how we can effectively use equity to fund normally our next investment, our second investment. The hardest point to get into property is the very first property that we buy. That's the most difficult that people are experiencing, is saving that initial deposit. Once you get into the property market, then the property will work for you. And that's the creation of equity, where we can effectively use equity to move into the second property, third, and so on. Property in super. So we have many properties that are being built and constructed for the superannuation industry, and then a case study. So who are we and how can we help you? We're a group of companies, Epic Property Marketing, which specialises in the property side of things, R2M Home Loans, which helps out home loans, investment loans, and Epic Tax and Financial Services. That's where they provide the structural advice in a tax-effective manner to buy property, whether it be for asset protection or through a company. That advice is strategically provided by Sekou. So, in a nutshell and in a conclusion, the core of our business is basically to help mum and dads, individuals, families, businesses to buy properties in a tax-effective manner to help fund our retirements. That's what we're here for. We're investing in the retirement. To sit back and wait on the pension, it's not advisable. So we need to jump the gun and invest wisely for our future. So depending where each and everyone is up to in life and how aggressive you want to be, some are wanting to retire sooner than later. And that's what we're here for, is to provide that guidance. We've got many clients who are now well into their 4th, 5th property, others that are just starting out, and we're educating them. We're investors ourselves, so we're doing it, and we're learning as well as we're going along, because of different laws. Laws are always changing, especially the tax laws. But property is time in the market. It's a long-term thing. So, yeah, I think I'll be handing over to Sekou now. Thank you kindly, and feel free in the folders that you've got there at the end of the folder, at the back page, there's a questionnaire. Briefly fill it in with your name and details and how we can help you, and we'd be more than happy to communicate with you in due course. But much appreciated, and I'll hand you over to Sekou. Thank you.
Okay. So when I was asked to come and talk to you today, I had to decide exactly what to talk about. Because when you talk about getting ahead financially, you see, the principle is very simple. What you really have to do is to figure out a way to transform your income into a tangible asset or any other asset that provides you cash flow that you can depend on as opposed to depending on employment. That is the principle. So the principle of financial freedom is really trying to figure out what is it you have to do to transform the income you receive from business or employment to something, an asset, that produces sufficient income so that you are liberated from the need to work. That's what you're trying to achieve. And then when you try to do that, you ought to ask yourself, well, what is the best way to actually do that, right? There are so many variables. One of the variables is your personal income, your discipline. But one of the key important factors is how you choose to deal with your cash flow and where you place it. Now, when I was going to university, the conventional economic wisdom was if you want to create wealth, you invest in shares. So the question becomes, why property? Why not shares? Why not managed investment schemes? Why not bonds? Why not all of those assets? Why not cryptocurrency? Why property? Right? So what I'm going to do today is to try to philosophize this question. Let's look at it from a conceptual perspective. Why, if you're trying to start up in life, why should you start with property first before you look at anything else? That's my proposition. Right? So I put here, okay, I think this is the old presentation, but that's fine. Now, when you look at businesses, all the businesses on the planet, and I will put forward that wherever you have a businesses, in terms of what they provide to people, it would not be outside of the following 6. Number 1, either they're trying to house people. So look at all of the big businesses in Australia, your banking, your banks and your insurance companies and your all of them, what are they trying to do, right? They provide 2 services, right? One I call primary service. Primary services are necessary to the survival of human beings. Yeah. And then the second I call secondary non-primary services. Those, yes, we need them, but we can do without, right? So what do? What do businesses do? Let's say you invest in a share. Yeah, what does it do, right? Well, companies, either they are trying to house you, yeah, that means they're actually buying houses for you, yeah, or they're trying to feed you, right? So they invest in agriculture, food, and other stuff, right? Or they try to medicate you, right? So those 3 I call primary services. A company will have, if you buy shares on the stock exchange, most likely you're going to be investing in a company that's either providing primary services or non-primary services. The primary services are housing you, feeding you, medicating you. Right? The non-primary services are weaponizing you. There are companies who produce weapons and they allow us to actually kill each other, or they entertain you, or they educate you. That's it. Think about a company that's doing anything but those 6. Can you think about it? Can you think about a business? I did the seminar some time ago. Someone said, oh, but we are churches, so we are mosques. I said, you are medicating. If you are healing the soul, you are medicating, right? So now, what does this mean, right? It means that really, if you want to place your money somewhere, you are safe for placing it in the primary businesses, the one that are either feeding or housing or medicating. And property is one of those primary services. That's why it is important. If you're starting out in life, my advice is try to get into your first house, because it is based on the research in Australia and the history of the market that we know. Property most likely is going to play the most significant impact on your financial freedom. Right? But why does it do that? Well, as I said before, it is a primary service. That's one of the reasons. But it's also tangible. You can see it. You can feel it. It's not like shares. Shares are ownership instruments. Yeah. But you see, I'm someone when I'm learning something, I like to think about, okay, how can I actually break it down, right? So when I was going to the way I taught myself to understand what shares are, I was taught another financial instrument called a derivative when I was at university. Who knows what is a derivative? Yeah, what is it? So if you answer a question right, you get a Mars bar. Yeah, what is a derivative? Yeah, but that's a name, that's an example, that's a type of derivative. What does it do?
It's a mixture of the non-primary.
Okay, you're almost there. Yes? Yeah, that's what it does. But in concept, how do you explain to your 4-year-old child what is a derivative? Yeah, that's an aspect of it.
You are buying,
Yeah.
for
Okay.
capital,
So-
you are buying to the future.
Okay. Yeah.
And that's the price.
Correct. Now, derivative. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. So. Yeah.
I told you I agree. Okay, so the first thing,
Yeah.
so I speak as a personal accountant.
Yeah.
So I'll speak more like Ireland.
Yeah. Yeah.
So a derivative is a financial instrument.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I was going to define derivative, right? So I said derivative is a financial instrument. So it operates in such a way that the value of it is dependent on the underlying item. or
Fantastic.
variable.
That's what I wanted.
That's what I wanted. Okay, good.
That's what I wanted. So it's a financial instrument whose value is derived from the underlying commodity it represents. Now, let me ask you this question. Yeah? So a derivative, it's a piece of paper. In itself, it has no intrinsic value, right? The value is derived from the commodity it represents, right? What about shares? It's just a piece of paper. Does it have an intrinsic value? It doesn't. So how do you determine the value? By reference to the activities of the underlying businesses. So in that sense, shares are almost like derivatives. Except in economics, they are not valued the same. And when you buy shares, you actually buy an interest in the actual company. You don't buy a right. So that's the key difference, right? Now, how does that compare with property? Yeah? It's a physical, tangible asset that you actually own. Yeah. It doesn't depend on anything else for value. That's what's set aside. Right? That's from a pure economic perspective. It performed long term. We'll look at some of the long term performances. For example, this information here is provided by RP data. What are they saying here? So over the past 25 years, the median house value nationally has risen by 412%. Now, this was back in 2018. So ask yourself, if there's an investment out there that 25 years can give you 412%, and you don't try to actually play that game, you are missing out, right? That's why property is important. So again, it's a primary investment, like how is feed, clothes, and Medicaid. Yeah, these are primary investments. And it had lower correlation with other asset classes. So markets are relatively volatile. When you are investing, you need to be ready to lose money, right? But properties have low correlation with other asset classes. Now, I might be using a technical term here. Who knows what is a correlation? Relationship, fantastic. Yeah? Yeah. Correlation means if you look at two atoms, if one moves in a particular direction, how does that movement affect the other one? Yeah? If they move together, they are correlated. So the degree to which two things move together determine the correlation. So when you look at property, it's not really correlated with other asset classes like shares and things like that. And there's a reason for that. The reason for that, it's a primary investment. Yeah? It's not a secondary type investment. Okay. And the most important thing about property as well, the performance is tied to the provision of man's basic needs, shelter and security. Every human being, at some point in time, needs a house. Either they're going to own it or they're going to rent it, right? If you're going to rent it, you may as well ask yourself, why should I actually buy one? What I was trying to answer in the first slide is, if you're trying to start out in life, why would you target property and not other asset classes? So in summary, what you need to know is a primary investment. No matter what happens to the economy, there will always be a need for houses. If the economy goes south, we can do away with other type of investment like shares and things like that, because depending on what they invest in, but that's not the case with property. That's why, if you're not a house owner, after this seminar, you should be contacting myself and my business partner. We'll sit down with you, work out how to actually get you there. Now, let me ask this question. How many people in here own their own houses? Yeah? Fantastic. Okay. For those of you who don't have your own house yet, we will have a lot of information here for you today to explain to you how you can get your foot in the door. Okay. One of the questions that people have been asking, especially we've had 13 consecutive increases in interest rate. And a question that many people are asking is, should I buy now or wait later? Yeah? What do you think? Buy now or later? Buy now. So what are we waiting for? We should pack our bags and go. Yeah. Okay. The issue should be, maybe some of us don't know how to actually start, or we don't have the cash flow or the deposit. I will tell you how you can actually manage that. Okay. So definitely, my position is you should buy now. The time for you to buy is whenever you can afford, right? The reason for that are the following. Time in the market is more rewarding than time in the market. Yeah? There are people who are speculators and they want to sit there and calculate numbers to see where the market is going. I'm going to buy this year, so it doesn't work. Yeah? Market reward people who stay in there longer. You saw on the previous slide that up to about 2018, 412% increase on average in house prices. So time in the market is very important. Yeah. And more importantly, as long as you are alive, you need a place to stay. That's why you should get your house, because you need a place to stay. Right? And if you are in your own house, no matter what happens to market, you're not going to sell it. Because if you sell it, you move into the next person's house and you pay rent to them. So time in the market is very important. The other thing as well, many people who believe that you should defer your purchases like to compare Australia with the Europeans and the Americans, right? I said that's a mistake. You cannot do that. Because Australia, as far as with respect to the share market, I will agree, we should do a comparison. But when it comes to properties, there is a significant difference between the structure and the design of the Australian property market as compared to Europe or America. So there could be no comparison whatsoever, right? So properties in the US could be going south and we are going north. There are reasons for that. What are those reasons? I've listed some of these things here. We have something called the 50% CGT discount. What this means, if you buy a house to live in it and you sell it later, okay? So if you buy a house as an investment, for example, if you buy a house as an investment and you keep it for at least about 12 months, when you sell it, the profit you make on that investment, half of it is not taxed. I'll give you an example. Imagine someone buys a property for $1 million and it goes up to 2 million. So they have 1 million profit. Yeah? As an investment, they have 1 million profit. They sell it, they pay tax only on 500,000. The remaining 500,000 is exempt from tax. The only condition is you must hold it for at least 12 months. Right? Yeah? That is an incentive in the tax law for you to buy property. That incentive is not provided to other investments. Yeah? So 50%, you have a 50% CGT discount. Okay? So in Australia, that's Australian tax law. The Europeans and Americans, they don't do that, so you cannot compare. You cannot compare. We have what we call in economics is a structural distortion. The market is distorted. You have things built in the tax policy that are inflationary. The others don't have that. So let's not do a comparison. That's the first difference. The other difference as well is that the house you live in, I didn't put that here, the house you live in is totally exempt from capital gains tax. If you buy a house and you live in it, you shall later make $1 million profit, you pay no tax. Okay? Again, vastly different from other OECD economies. They will try to tax you to some extent on that gain. We don't. We don't. We have something called negative gearing. Yeah? Many other countries in the developed world don't have it. Yeah? Negative gearing is a situation where you have a property that is generating rent, and the rental income does not cover all the expenses, so you are making a loss from a cash flow perspective. Yeah. Now that loss you are making is not all gone. Yeah. The loss you are making, you use that loss to reduce the income payable on your wages. Yeah. Or if you have a business, you use those losses to reduce the accessible income of your business, right? So again, many other countries don't have that. That's a distortion. They don't have that. Okay. Now, more importantly, we have something called in economic housing equity withdrawal. Now, this one here is a whopper. Yeah. Housing equity withdrawal basically is a situation where if you have what is called equity in your house, yeah, you don't have to sell your house to access that. Yeah. Now, about 8 months ago, I was in Europe and I was talking to financial advisors and things, and someone in France told me, no, in France, you wouldn't allow to do this once, because it's inflationary. I say, I agree with you, but that is not the case here. You can do it multiple times. Yeah. If you have a property, it grows in value, you do not need to sell it. You go to the bank and the bank lends that money out to you in cash. And you take it, you go buy a second property. That goes up in value. You go back to the bank and you take that money again and you go buy another one, right? Now, in economics, we have something called fractional banking. Yeah, who knows what is fractional banking? Yeah?
I'm just taking a guess.
Yeah?
If you're using parts
Yeah?
of a, I guess using your bank
Yeah?
to buy portions
Yeah?
of an asset.
Yeah? Yeah? No.
No? Okay.
Yeah? I'll still give you that. It's a good try. Yeah? Yeah? Yeah?
Maybe I think when bank wants to partner with you,
Yeah?
especially if you are using your equity to buy an investment property, and it's like a partnership thing. They want to partner to make your dreams.
No, that's not correct.
You're making me feel good.
Another one. Okay, so this is how banks make money, right? So when I was going to university, I studied. There's a subject in economics called money and banking, right? Now I graduated from university in 1995. In 1995, believe it or not, no economist on the planet knew what banks did. No one. They had a theory of banking. Yeah? They don't know, even the government. I don't know now, maybe the situation has changed. Maybe by now, the scholarship has expanded. We have more knowledge. But at the time I graduated from university, no, it's not 1985, it was first year of uni in 1995. I graduated in 1999. No one knew what banks did. They had a theory of banking, but we didn't know what they do, right? So one of the theories in there is that banks manufacture cash. They create money, right? One of the other theories was they do intermediation. I don't believe in that. Intermediation, basically that banks take money from you and they give it to another person. It appears that's what they do, but in reality, that's not what they're doing. Yeah, they're actually creating money. The creation money is through something you call fractional banking. How does it happen? Right. Imagine I am a bank. Yeah, you are my client. You give me your $100. Right. Under the law, I keep 10%. Yeah, I keep 10%. The remaining 90%, I can give it to him. When I give it to him, what does he do with that money? He brings it back to me. Then I keep 10% of it. The remaining 90%, I give it to him. He brings it back to me. I keep 10% of it. The remaining 90%, I give it to her. This keeps going on. This keeps going on. Yeah. If you do the math, that $100 there's, it could create maybe another $10,000 from that one. That's fractional reserve banking. Right. Now, how does that affect the price of properties in Australia? And that's what you need to know. So look at conventional property mathematics, right? So you are selling a house. She is the buyer. I am the bank, right? So I gave her money to buy property from you. You have the cash. It's $1 million. What are you going to do with it? You're going to give it back to me. Yeah? I'm going to keep 10%. I'm going to lend $900,000 to him, right? What is he going to do with that? He's going to go buy maybe another property with that. So he uses it, buy property, that money comes back to me, yeah? I'll lend it to him. He buys another property with it, yeah? So this keeps going on. It inflates house prices. This is what, this week, for example, I listened to the news, our government is talking about, they're talking about negative gearing. I said, you're wasting your time, yeah? The very nature, the design of the economic system in Australia is very different with respect to property from other OECD economies. We have, these are what I call structural biases. These are biases that are actually built into the system and they inflate house prices. That's why in the previous slide, up to 2018, you have 412% increase in house prices. Right? And it's precisely why, if you are in a position to buy a property, do not delay, because the market is not waiting for you. It doesn't wait. Right? So that's one of the reasons you shouldn't wait. The other thing as well is, this is my own personal observation of Australian property market, and I think very fundamentally different from every other market. Yeah. Now, the way I like to rationalize market is to compare market with a sponge. Yeah? If you have a sponge and there's a rainfall, it gets saturated with water, right? Yeah. But then when you squeeze it, the water goes out, the sponge becomes its proper sponge. So what happens, especially in the property market, is that sometimes the market may be saturated with too many bad news. Yeah. But over time, a number of things happen. Either people forget the past, yeah. So time is a squeezer. The impact of time in economics on market, and I don't care if it's property or share market, the impact of time is to squeeze out the bad news. In the short term, you have bad news coming in. As time is going on, right, time squeezes out the bad news. And there's a reason for that. Yeah, there's a reason for that. Our sentiments change, the market change, situations change. Yeah. If this situation were stagnant, there will be we will not move forward, right? So time squeezes out bad news, and when that bad news is being squeezed out, market explodes, right? And that is one of the reasons you should not wait. What is that telling you? If you're trying to say, well, I'm going to wait because interest rates are actually high now, well, you're doing yourself a disfavor, because the market could be exploding by the time you're actually ready to do something. Okay. Now. The evidence from the Australian property market, my own personal observation, I actually, when I was, I did a graduate diploma in property, which is not here. When I was doing that, I wrote an essay, and I had to look at the data. I had a set of data, and I had to look at it, and I came out with something that I call DOE. Recently, my team told me to create a social media platform, so I created something called Knowledge TV. You may find this there. If you want to have access later, you can let me know. But I call it demand oppression and explosion hypothesis. It is a hypothesis. It's not a fact. It's my opinion. Demand oppression and explosion hypothesis. What do I mean by that? So my observation is the following. Whenever there's bad news in Australia, yeah, whenever there's bad news has the following effect. Yeah. Number one, the seller of the property will pull out of the market, because if I have a house and I'm not going to get what I want for it, I'm not going to sell it unless I'm really forced to sell it. The seller will pull out. When the seller pulls out, what happens? Yeah? The builder pulls out of the market as well. The builder says, well, I can't get a decent profit margin, I'm not going to build. Right? Now, in efficient economies like the Europeans and Americans, what do? Their government will step in and do something. In Australia, what happened? We do absolutely nothing. Our politicians will do absolutely nothing. So we are left with the following conundrum. We have bad economic news. The seller has pulled out of the market. The builder has pulled out of the market. The investors are sitting on the fence. They are neither buying nor are they selling. What happened? We have a rental glut. Who was here during the GFC? Yeah? Now, if you go back, we had a global economic crisis, GFC 2007, 2018. Immediately after that, if you wanted to rent a property, you stood in a long queue. You stood in a very, very long queue, right? And you had real estate agents playing games with people, right? And this is now happening in certain places in Australia. You have vacancy rate below 1%. Yeah? Why is this happening? Well, it's a confluence of the following. We had bad economic news, interest rates are going up, economies are scaring everyone. And therefore, the builders pull out of the market, the sellers pull out, there's no supply, there are no houses. And people want houses to live in, right? So what happened when that negative news is eradicated? What happened? They squeeze her, yeah? Market explodes, okay? So in summary, the confluence of there are several factors. Whenever there is a bad economic news, a number of things happen, yeah? But seller pulls out, builder pulls out, government does nothing, yeah? And then there is a supply shrink. So when the bad news is removed, investors flood the market, demand increases, and prices explode. Okay? Now, I will explain this in the next slide. So I call this Australian property market behavior my own personal observation. It's a hypothesis, but I have the facts. The next slide will explain it. Can you play the video? Just click on it. People can't hear the volume, I think. It's playing, but you can't hear it. If it doesn't work, I will just explain it myself. Huh? There's a video. It's not working, is it? Huh? Okay. All right. So the video was just explaining that, but maybe the slide will come back. I will just explain it. Just put the slide up. I can just explain it myself. We can just go back to the slides and I'll explain it myself.
You ask, Sekou, what evidence do you have to prove the point that bad economic news like rising interest rate always push up property prices in the long term, as you argued in your previous video? My answer, think about property market like a sponge. In the short term, the sponge is saturated by too much bad news, like
just put up the slide.
Inflation and rising interest rates. In the long term, there is a squeezer, and that squeezer is good economic news. It erupts.
We have Technology failure. Yes, forget the video, just slide. Okay. So the evidence that you should not delay your project, you should do now, is the following. So let's look at some historical periods of bad economic news. Okay. So we have here the period 1970 to 1990. Rates were up 17%, right? And it was a disaster for many people. But the impact was that seller pulled out, builder pulled out, supplies shrinked. Supplies, there was a shrink in supply. And when that bad economic news was over, in the following decade, prices went up over 700%. Then we had, again, 1985, 1987, the Australian government decided that there's economic reasons to remove what is called negative gearing. We'll talk about what is negative gearing. They thought, okay, let's remove it because it's a distortion. Yeah. Now I do agree it is a distortion. Yeah. But certain distortion, certain habit, there's a habit that once you start it, it's almost impossible to get rid of it. It will be disastrous to get rid of it. Negative gearing for Australia is one of those things. You can't just get rid of it. You need to get rid of a whole range of other things that are actually built into the system, right? And I don't think that's going to happen. But they say, well, let's get rid of it. It's not good, okay? And then what happened? Subsequent decade, prices up 75% nationwide. Okay. Then we had the GFC. I love this one. Yeah. I love this one because I was personally affected by this one, right? And then who knows what is the GFC? What happened? Market crash. Yeah? Good. Yeah? Why did market crash? Yes, she knows. Why did market crash? Yeah? What? Yeah? Fantastic. Good news. In simple, there was too many bad news. The bad news was just overwhelming. Yeah? And the bad news in this time was with financial services doing dodgy business, lending money to people who should not have been able to borrow money. And that came to actually bite the global economic system. But then what happened was, in Australia, again, this was bad news. Everyone said property market was going to crash. Yeah? They were stagnated. And a similar story. Yeah? Everyone put out the market. The builder wasn't building and the seller wasn't selling. Yeah? And then what happened, because I actually witnessed this, what happened at that point in time, the property that we were leasing now, we used to have people line up in the queue. Just lines of people. Right? And as the result, investors, when investors see people piling up to rent a place, they flood the market. And when they flooded the market went up in some places up to 200%. In fact, until COVID, we were still in the post-GFC era, GFC period. All of the explosion in prices we've seen now, I consider all of it to be post-GFC impact. Okay? And now we have COVID, and then we had governments increasing interest rate over 13 times. And the same question is being asked. Should I wait or should I buy now? Okay? What do you think is going to happen? Right? So I have information here from Bank of Queensland. They're saying dwelling prices grew around 7% in 2023. What happened in 2023? Interest rate went up 13%. But 7%, that's more than half as many times as rate were actually increased. We increased interest rate 13 times, and then we have 7% growth in prices. Do you think prices are going to wait? No, they are not, right? Why? Because we have structural biases in the system. The system says, I live in a house, I sell it, I don't pay any tax. The system says, I buy a house as an investment, I keep it for 12 months, 50% of my profit is not taxable. The system says, When a bank lends me money, right? When I sell my property and I put the money and I give that money to the bank only have to keep 10% of that money. The bank can lend that money to someone else to buy another property. That person who received that money is now going to keep it under the pillow. They're going to give it back to the same bank. And when they give it back to the same bank, what's going to happen? They're going to lend it to another person. And that person is now going to keep it under the pillow. They're going to put it back. You see how this keeps going on and on and on and on? That's why the market is inflationary. Yeah? And unfortunately, you cannot kill that system by getting rid of negative gearing, right? Or perhaps sporadic increases in interest is not going to solve the problem. And it's why, if you are renting, you seriously, if you can do it, you should be talking to us so we can actually hold your hand. We do many things for our clients. If you are not in a position to buy now, maybe you don't have the deposit, we put you on a savings plan. Yeah. This week we put someone on the we helped this week to put a deposit on the property, and it's settling. When is it settling? In 4 weeks' time. 5 years I was working with him to save money. 5 years. Yeah. Now he was actually able to buy something. Yeah. So we can sit down with you, look at your cash flow, do budgeting. We have a system where I create a bank account for you. Yeah, and you and I agree that every fortnight or every month you're going to put X amount in that bank account, and every 3 months I'm going to call you like a big brother or small brother depending on the age differences. Yeah, and we're going to say, okay, we say you're going to save this month. Did you save it? Right? Did you save it? I do reviews every 3 months for people who are on my savings program. Normally for the general Australian public, I charge people $999 for this annual review. For the African diaspora, it's only $300 a year. That's it. Pay quarterly. And I put you in a savings program. This week, I completed this review for some client, an African client. And he cannot make it, he never keep to the plan. He's got the income, but he can't save it. Why? Because there are always emergencies back in Africa. Always. No matter what happened, there's always emergencies. Yeah. So we agreed that, okay, we say, okay, maybe one of the things we did not do in our budget is to allow for those emergencies. Let's think about what those emergencies look like and what you need to actually set aside. Yeah. And then once we agree on that, he and I made a commitment that no matter what emergency arrives in Africa, we've made an allowance. Yeah. And that allowance was approximately about $750 a month. It's a lot of money, but that's the allowance he's made to support people back in Africa. So we made an agreement that if you spend all your $750 in 1 month, I don't care if someone dies, they call you, you say wait next month. Yeah, so we can do that. You and I can come to that. So it's a formal budgeting agreement. I put it in paper. We have the scope of engagement. You're supposed to be saving X amount, and every quarter we'll do a review. If you don't save the money, we'll talk about what happened. Yeah. What happened and what are you going to do next? Like in this case, for example, we say, okay, let's make an allowance, because clearly the first time we did the planning, there was he had mentioned to me that I help families and things, but he said I will take care of that. Right. But then it turned out he couldn't. He's never been able to actually save. Right? He will save the money, but it will come out. Something will happen, it will come out. So we can actually do that. Okay. Okay. So now, the most important question, where do you start? Where do you start? Now, we know by now, if you're going to do something, you should be looking at getting into your first house. The question, of course, is very difficult. Where do you start? Yeah. I found that in most cases with the African diaspora is the lack of information that stops people from getting into their own house. Yeah. They think the bank is the boogeyman. Yeah. Banks are businesses. They want your business as much as you want their business. They are businesses. They're not boogeymen. Right? So the lack of information and lack of literacy is one of the primary reasons why.
All right, we have a question
Yeah.
on. So the question is, how much do you charge for people to get investment property if they're still paying a mortgage on the first one?
We don't charge you a fee for a discussion. Yeah, we don't charge you a fee for a discussion. We will charge you a fee if your situation is complex and you need a strategy. But this would depend on your situation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for
But
that.
for an hour, to have a meeting with me by video conference, talk about your situation, collect the facts, and discuss exactly how we can help you, there is no fee for that. Yeah. What happens is, if I put you on a savings program, maybe I put you on a plan to get first, second, third properties, then I will charge a fee for that.
Of the fees, do you have an exact amount for the fees?
It depends on people's situation. So, for example, I've got many. So I'm what you call a private wealth advisor. I've got private clients. So my private client, they pay me, to look after them, right? But I would say for the African diaspora, for example, if I'm coaching you over time, the fee per year is not more than $2,000 a year. Okay. Now I do not charge a fee for someone who's trying to actually buy their first house. There's no fee for that, even for the budgeting. Yeah. Even for the budgeting, I don't charge a fee. If you're trying to get if you're trying to get your foot into the door, I don't charge a fee. I only request that we do our meeting via video conference. Yeah. If you want to call out, want me to come to you, I'll charge you for a call out. Yeah. But if you don't own a house, you're trying to get into the market, don't charge a fee for that. I'll put you in a program for free. Okay. So how do you start? The most important thing is have good character. Funny, eh? Banks, out of all people, want you to have good behavior. Yeah, I find that really amazing. Yeah? Now, well, for a bank, what does character look like? Well, a bank wants someone. You see what happens in Australia if you enter into a credit arrangement with someone. Credit arrangement is basically any form of borrowing. Yeah. So, your behavior is monitored. Whether or not you make your repayments on time when they are due. If you are late for a day or two, that information gets reported to a credit rating agency. Yeah? That means you have bad character. When you want to borrow money, the first thing the bank wants to do, they will put out your credit profile. They will see all the instances in which you are late with your payment, even for a day. And they will say, I'm sorry, I can't lend to you. If you could not meet an obligation on which you're supposed to be paying off a credit card that is like maybe $1,500 limit, why should the bank trust you with $1 million of my money? Right? So the starting point is to have good character, clean credit history. Now, if you don't have good credit history, it's not the end of the road. Yeah. There are banks that actually specialize in lending money to people with, a bit of issues with their credit history. But we also have relationship with lawyers. We have relationship, what happened there? We have relationship with companies, we don't do it ourselves, where they can actually clean your credit profile. Yeah, it's possible to do so. I don't know how that works. We have the relationship with them. We send clients to them, and sometimes they come back, they fix the problem, or in some cases, they come out and say, sorry, we can't fix it. But most of the time, they can fix it. So it's very important, if you're trying to get your foot in the door, be careful with your credit. I would say stay away from credit cards and personal loans altogether. It's not good. You can't stay away from it. Yeah, the rate is too high. Yeah. Stay away from credit cards and personal loans altogether. If you're going to do a credit card, do those ones where if you take the money in a week, it's clear. Mm-hmm.
When we were going to buy, I think our second car, that was about a couple of years back. And I went in.
Can you repeat?
Wanted to buy a car, a second car. And I went into the car dealer.
Yeah.
And we had negotiations. I said, okay, I want to pay. That time, I didn't have any credit card.
Yeah.
In Africa, it's cash basis. And I just come in not quite long. So he said, don't have a credit profile. Yeah. And as at that time, I remember that I had close to 40,000 in my bank that I showed to him. Mm-hmm. He said, that's how it works here. If you don't have a credit history, there's no way we can rate you.
Yeah.
And it's sort of ironic to me because I told him that, look, I thought by having money, you will be rating me as good Yeah, but I understand that they are just trying to build a trend.
Yeah.
See your payment history, how you pay, but it doesn't add up for me. So that's why I'm pulling up that question for you.
So do not take advice from car dealers. That's a shonky car dealer you're talking to. Yeah? The banks don't care that you've had no credit card in your life. The banks don't care. But some of these smaller institutions, I'll call them they care. Yeah? Now, very important in that scenario, one of the advice I gave to all of my African clients, stay within your means. If you want to buy a car, you don't have the cash, and someone is telling you to go get a credit card, don't do it. Buy something else you can afford. This is where disasters happen. Yeah? I recently met someone who earned $300,000 a year. He came here as a student. Yeah? He came here as a student and he wanted to live the life. He's racked up over $190,000 of debt. Yeah. $190,000 of debt. Yeah? Because he did not want to live in his means. He wanted to buy a car, go get the loan. Want to do this here, go get the loan because he's got the income and just keep building up. Now he wants to get his own house. Now, even though he earns good money, he can't service the debt because, servicing, we'll get into that later, but this is now a problem. So the first thing we have to do, we have to get rid of that debt. Yeah? So very important. Live within your means. However emasculate that make you feel, is better for you. Live within your means. Yeah? And definitely do not get financial advice from car dealers.
Sorry, I just wanted to understand your rationale for that assertion.
Yeah.
Did you come to that conclusion because, of course, based on experience, that people, I don't want to use the word African, but people tend to default, then it's safer to just stay away from it. So let me balance it. I also have an instance where there are people who have never defaulted.
Yeah.
So in that instance, would you say the same principle applies to those kind of people?
Okay. My general position when it comes to personal loans, stay away from it. Why? It's an economic killer. It's a killer. Let me explain to you, right? So let's say you take out a personal loan with an interest of 14%. Yeah? 14%. That's the cost you are paying today to the lender. The real cost is 14% plus the tax. If you're on the top marginal tax rate, that's 22%. You don't think about that because you have to earn the income first, pay tax on it, and then pay the lender. Yeah? So you need to factor into your cost calculation when you try to actually borrow money for personal purposes. You need to factor the real cost. The real cost is the rate you are paying to the financial institution plus the tax. When you do the mathematics, it's a killer. Every dollar you are borrowing is most likely going to cost you 30 cents. Why would you do that? Why would you do that? Now I understand the reason people do it. I don't have the cash up front to actually go do something. I understand that, right? I would say limit your personal loan to maybe borrowing to buy a car because it gets you to your work. Yeah, and the rate on those ones is cheaper. You can get to 5-6%. With the real cost it could be 8-9%. That's reasonable. Yeah, but a credit card with a 14% interest rate. Yeah, you add your tax to that about 22%. That's a lot of money you're giving away, and there's no need for you to do that. Because those sporadic expenses you can manage with your cash flow. Yeah, it's my personal position, and it comes from a purely financial planning perspective. It's one of the training I got when I first came to Australia. I was very lucky. I started my career back in 2000 as a financial planner. Yeah, and you go to financial planning too. This is 101 of financial planning. Stay away from personal debt. And the reason is pretty simple. It's not because you are disciplined with the repayment. It's because it's costing you too much. It's costing you too much. Yeah? Does that answer your question?
No, I just wanted to be sure.
So then does that mean that a credit score is kind of not an important thing? Because that's also why one might get a credit card so that they can show or build a credit score.
Well, okay, now this might be important for the US, but in Australia, definitely not. If you step into a bank and you've been working 4 or 5 years, you've got income and things like that, you have no credit history, it is the job of your broker to explain to the bank why you have no information on your credit history. You don't have, so when I borrow money to buy my house, I don't like credit cards. I had nothing. And it never stopped me from borrowing money from the banks. Yeah? Banks do not care. What banks care about, let me tell you what banks look like. Banks, we'll go into that. Yeah? Banks look at what? Asset, cash flow, character. Finish. Asset, cash flow, character.
I think one of the things to measure actually when this Royal Commission came in is if you are renting, they look at your renter, how you pay your rent history consistently. So they look at that, and that's why they look at your bank statement and see where your cash flow is going. By that, they can determine your credit character. I think
No. If you have zero credit history because you've never borrowed money from the bank, no bank is going to say, I can't lend you money.
No, what I'm saying is, do they use maybe if you are renting and you're paying your rent regularly, they sort of
not necessarily. So some bank, for example, if you're borrowing less than 95%, or some bank 90%, they don't need to see your rental history. They don't need to see that. They just want to see asset, cash flow, character. Finish. Okay. They don't even need to see. But if you're paying, the banks have something called genuine savings. We'll come into that. Genuine savings is you need to be able to save at least 5% of the deposit in your bank account for over 90 days. If you're going to go buy a house to live in it. 5% of the purchase price you need to have it saved in your bank account for over 90 days. And if you do that, they don't need to see your rental history. But if you don't have that, let's say, for example, mom and dad just gave you money today, you put it in your bank account, they want to see your rental history because they want to see, well, how can we verify that you are actually in a position to make repayment? We need to look at rental history. So in summary, it is the general thinking in the market that I should take credit cards and things to build up your credit history. Don't do it. It's going to cost you too much and it doesn't affect your borrowing. Okay, so again, we are still up on that first slide. So first thing, how do you start? You need to build up your character.
So sorry, here's a question.
Yes, I just wanted to ask, when you're presenting your bank details, does it really matter when you have like 2 accounts? So for instance, you have a running account and you have a savings account. Mm-hmm. Do you have to present all your bank account, or you just designate one to present?
Okay. It doesn't matter how many banks. You can have 1,000. You could have 1,000 accounts. Banks don't care. Now, so when it comes to actually buying property in terms of evidence, the bank want to verify your income. They want to verify that you have income to service the debt. We'll get into that later. Verify your income. They want to verify the evidence of funds to complete. If you're paying 5% deposit plus your cost, they want to see, okay, where is that money? Where did it come from? So we explained today, okay, she got money in 4 different accounts altogether accumulated to 5%. Or she has money in 1 account, which is 5%, right? So they don't care how many bank accounts you have. They just care that you have the money to complete the transaction. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Why I asked the question is, so the running account sometimes run into negative, not so much, maybe $10, $20. It doesn't really matter.
So if you run it into negative, the banks want an explanation for that. Because really, if your cash flow is okay, you should never run into a negative.
Because you are using this particular account for running account, so you really don't keep money there. But sometimes you go to the store and you spend more, and then in a day or few hours.
If we can explain to the bank, I had exact situation with many African clients where they have an expense account and a savings account, and expense account goes into negative. But we are able to show the bank that while this account is in negative, this one has $100,000 in there, and that's not an issue. That's not an issue. As long as banks are big on explanations. So the professional you're dealing with, like myself or any other person, if they can explain the story to the bank, hey, if you look at the transaction account, you see that it's always in negative. but she has a saving account of 100,000. The reason for that, wages are getting paid into this account. They are being transferred into here for expenses, and sometimes they are just very busy to make the transfer finish. They understand that. They are like they're common people. They understand. Okay. So you need to build up your character. That's the first thing. The next thing you need to do is to find deposit. Yeah. So banks, generally speaking, so if you have 5% deposit plus the other costs like stamp duty will get into, we can help you get it into your own house as long as you can service the debt. Right? But generally speaking, banks prefer that you come up with about 20% deposit. That's what they like. Yeah. Who can explain to me why this is the case? Yeah. To avoid LMI, okay, yeah. But why is it that banks want people to come out with about 20% deposit? Why? What's the reason? Yes, that's correct, but I'm trying to understand why a bank like people that have 20% deposit. Why do they like people who have 20% deposit? Haha, correct. Yeah, banks are in a game of managing risk. If you put 20% deposit into something, you are not likely to walk away when times get tough. Yeah, you know, 20% of $1 million, that's $200,000. You put $200,000 into how the market is going south. What are you going to do? You're gonna give it to the bank and move? You're not going to do that. You got too much. You have too much stake in the game, right? So yeah. That's why they like people who pay 20% deposit, and they say, if you give a 20% deposit, yeah, then we are not in fear of you running away. Therefore, you do not have to take out insurance to protect us from you running away. That insurance is called lender's mortgage insurance, which is what she was talking about. Yeah, lender's mortgage insurance is an insurance you take out to protect the bank's interest in your house if you are going to pay any less than 20% deposit, and it's very, 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 very extremely expensive. In fact, I will put forward that insurance plus stamp duty is the reason many of you here don't have a deposit if you're trying to get into the market. Very expensive. Yeah. So they prefer you come out with 5%, 20% deposit. If you don't, you can come with 5% deposit plus your cost. We'll talk about what are the costs. Okay. You need to have income to service the debt. So I'll put here when it comes to character, I'll say, if you don't want to have good character because God tells you to, do it because it's a bank requirement. Yeah. Okay. So in terms of deposit, it's 5% plus the other cost. The other cost is basically your stamp duty. Stamp duty is a state tax. You see, the Australian economic system is designed in a very, very strange way. Yeah. The federal government collects income tax. Yeah. And they keep it for themselves. I don't know what they do with that money, but I'm certainly not feeling it. Yeah. They keep it for themselves. Right. Now, the states are responsible to make sure that you and I have a good life. Where do they get the money from? They have to do stamp duty. That's where they get their money from, stamp duty and GST. Yeah, they can't tax you on your income, but they have responsibility to give you education, infrastructure, and the list goes on. Where do they get money from? They stamp duty and all the other state taxes. That's where they get the money from. Right? So when you're buying property, you need to have, in addition to this 5%, the stamp duty, you need a lawyer to go through the contract with you. So you need to allow for that. The title needs to be registered in your name when you become a landowner. So you have to allow for that. And there will be some bank charges and lender's mortgage insurance. So in addition to the 5%, you need to allow for all of that. Right? And those other costs. Now, many people can get 5%. 5% of $1 million, that's $500,000. $50,000, yeah? Many people can save that. But once you add all of these other things here, that's when it becomes problematic, right? Now let's go to the next slide. So now, what I've done here is to give you some examples on at 95%, looking at different purchase prices, how much deposits actually require. Yeah. So you look at 600,000, 95%, the bank gave you 570. You need only $30,000 of deposit. Yes, not a lot of money. Many people can do that, right? But then you add all of these other costs. Stamp duty, there will be no stamp duty. This is assume you're going to live in the house, there will be no stamp duty here. registration is only that, your lawyer will be that, but local lender's mortgage insurance, whopping $24,000. Yeah? So therefore, all these other costs about $25,000 plus your 30, you now need $55,830 plus only for $600,000. Yeah? Now you $700,000, you need $64,000. Yeah? Look at the LMI. Okay? Here again, there is no stamp. This is New South Wales. The reason there is no stamp duty is that under the New South Wales law, they have a concession for first home buyers. Yeah? If you buy a house up to $800,000, there is no stamp duty in New South Wales, as long as you meet all of the other conditions we'll go through later. So that's why there's no stamp duty here. Oh yeah, we do. We are helping. So we get to that. Yeah, we are helping clients. It depends on where you want to live. Yeah. Okay. So as 700,000, you need to, and again, so the amount you pay, the deposit you require depends on the type of house. Yeah. We'll come to the type of house. Houses can either be completed when you buy it, or you're going to buy land and you build on it. And there are differences between the two. If you buy a house that is already completed, you pay stamp duty on the total value of the house. If it's $1 million, stamp duty is calculated on the $1 million. If you buy a house and land, stamp duty is not calculated on the construction cost. It's only calculated on the land. It's only calculated on the land. So historically, it's always been cheaper to buy land and actually build on it because of that. Unless the exception is now with the new concession for first home buyers. Yeah, under the new concessions, up to $800,000 of any house that exists, no stamp duty. But the land is only up to $350,000. Yeah, so up to $800,000 purchase price, you'll be better off to work with a buy something that already exists. Yeah, under the new rules, but more than $800,000, definitely you need to be looking at house and land packages. Okay, so that's why you see here, for example, you see these calculations here, 700,000. If you these two here, basically no significant difference, but at $800,000, the deposit for a completed home is only that for house and land is that because the land component, I've assumed the land component is more than $350,000, right? So you pay a little bit of stamp duty there. Okay, now $900,000, look at that. Yeah, so at $900,000, you are better off with the house and land package. 1.1 million, you are better off here. 1.4, you're better off here. So the type of house that you want to buy plays a significant role. But you don't have to worry about understanding this mathematics. That's what we do. Yeah, we sit down with our client, we'll go through the math, we'll let you know how much. We first of all work out with you where you're going to live. So once you know where you're going to live, we look at the current prices and we calculate how much you need to be able to save to be able to actually get into that market. That's our job. And then we put you on a savings plan. Okay. Now, if you've ever owned a house before, that this will be charged. Even if it's maybe you own a house and you sold it, I will charge you a fee. But if you've never owned a house before, I rely on people's honesty. I don't charge you a fee. Okay. Go to the next slide. Okay. Now, so with that, if you want to buy a house, 3 things the bank are looking for. They want character, they want deposit, yeah, and they want you to be able to service the debt. Yeah, servicing in a simple term. Who can tell me what is servicing? Yes. Payback. Payback. Yeah. Now, who can explain to me how does the bank decide whether or not you are able to pay back a loan? Yeah. Cash flow. What do they do with your cash flow? What do they do with your cash flow? Okay. Let me explain it to you. Okay. So to understand servicing, you need to understand something that I call residual income. Yeah. This is the idea. The banks say, we will lend you money as long as your residual income exceed the loan repayment using long-term interest rate by a factor of 1.1 times. Yeah. Let me repeat. So a bank says, I will lend you money as long as you have surplus income. Residual income, we call it in economics, surplus income. And this surplus income exceeds your loan repayment using long-term interest rate by a factor of 1.1 times. So this is how the calculation works. First thing, we look at the money that's coming into your bank account. This is the money you receive from your employer, net of tax. Yeah? We take from that all of your normal living expenses, including insurances, credit cards, everything goes up. Now, what is left is your surplus income. Now, we want to see that this surplus income exceed the repayment for the amount that you were borrowing by more than 1.1 times. This is where it gets really, really interesting, because the interest rate the bank will be using for that repayment is not the current interest rate. Let me repeat that. The rate they are using to see if you can actually maintain the loan over 30 years is not the current interest rate. It is a long-term rate we call servicing rate. Right now, depending on the bank, this is between 10 and 12%. It's a killer. Yeah. This is why I was telling a client of mine the other day, he said, I've got all this money here, but I can't borrow. I said, yeah, right now, trying to borrow money from the major bank is akin to trying to brush the teeth of a crocodile. Really? Yeah. So that's a whopper. So once you have your surplus income, let's say you're going to borrow $500,000. You put the $500,000 on the loan repayment calculator using 10% interest rate. You get the repayment amount. That repayment amount needs to be more than your surplus income by 1.1 times. The mathematics is very simple. Yeah. So people go to brokers and bank. That's what's happening in the background. That's what they're doing. This is why when you come to us, we collect a lot of information. One, information on your credit cards and all of these things, because it all goes into that calculation. Yeah. So that's the idea of servicing. And I've given you some examples here on. I tried to create examples for couples, and there were just too many variables. I said, no, I'm not going to do that. If you're a couple, you can let me know. We have a customer service team. I will give you their email addresses. If you're trying to know exactly how much you can borrow, you send an email to our customer service team. They send you a form. You fill it out, put your income, expenses, all of these things, yeah, and they do the calculation and send it to you for free. Yeah, but I've just done something for a single person. On $120,000, you can borrow this much. Yeah. Now, the expenses I use here are what we call HEM. This is the statistical average of what a single person will normally spend. This will be very different from your personal expenses, and therefore this number may not mean anything to you, because your expenses may be different. Now, I assume, for example, here, the single person here is spending about close to $3,000 a month. You may not. Right? But so that's the borrowing capacity, and at 95%, that's the house value. 150, that's the borrowing capacity. At 95%, that's the house value. 170, that's the borrowing capacity. At 95%, that's the house value. It goes up to that. Oh, what happened there? Did I do something? Okay. Yeah? Yeah? Okay. Now, when you see this, don't get scared. Don't say, oh, my income is not there. I won't be able to borrow money. Yeah? No. Now, I'll put here that our business will have something we call a scavenger. We have 31 banks on our panel. Yeah? All banks are different. Some use a low servicing rate, some use a high servicing rate. Yeah? And what we do, we put your income on this scavenger. And it scavenges the banks and tell us exactly which bank is going to lend you the maximum amount. So if you look at this and you say, no, call us, we'll sit down with you and we will calculate the real numbers. Okay, but this is for illustration purposes. I didn't want to put something here extremely appealing and everyone say that. No. So everyone's situation is different. Yeah. So in here, for example, we are using a statistical average of expenses. Your situation may be different. So if your situation is different, we tell the bank, hey, she's not a statistic. She's a human being. And if you go into her bank account for the past 90 days, in terms of expenses, this is what you find. Yeah. So let's use that to calculate her borrowing capacity. Yeah, and the banks are happy with that. Yeah, their initial position is, unless you can prove that you spend less, we use the statistical average. But if you can prove that you spend less, we will use it. And to do that is 90 days. Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I just wanted to confirm. Is this based on you buying a house that you want to live in yourself or as an investment?
It doesn't matter whether or not you are an investor or you're going to live in a house. In terms of your living expenses, the banks have their own. Yeah? Whatever your situation is, they're putting your postcode into the calculator. They say, this person lives in this postcode, that's what we think they spend. Now, if you don't spend that, we need to explain. We go through your bank, we go through your bank statement for 90 days, and we identify the outflows, and we come back to the bank to say, hey, you think she spent 5,000? She doesn't. She really only spent 2,500. And they're happy with that because we can actually prove it.
You spoke about equity the other time, using your equity to buy another house. Would all these two still be factored in if you are borrowing to buy a second home?
Yeah, we have exceptional equity. We'll defer that question to that.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So in general, the idea, so banks are looking for three things. You have good character, you've got a deposit, and you can service the debt. Servicing the debt is a very straightforward mathematics. We just look at your surplus income, the money left over, and that amount needs to exceed or be more than your loan repayment by a factor of 1.1 times. Okay? And we do all of these calculations for you. You don't have to actually do it. I've got a team that actually do that for you. Okay? Go to the next slide. Okay. So, if you're thinking, well, I want to get into the market, but I don't have that 5% deposit. I don't have money. Right? So, what are some of the government schemes that are available in the market to assist people to get into their first home? So I've listed the major ones in there. You've got the stamp duty concessions, first home owners grant, first home guarantee scheme, first home saver scheme, and the bank scheme. So let's go through them. The concession. So we talked about stamp duty before. The concession, basically, this is every state have it. I'm talking about New South Wales now. So in this presentation, we are focusing on New South Wales only. Right? So in New South Wales, you have a full exemption from stamp duty up to a purchase price of $800,000. By the way, who knows what is stamp duty? What is it? What sort of tax is it? Yeah. It's a transfer tax. It's a transactional tax. Yeah? It's a transfer tax. Yeah? So what happened? The way states in Australia make money, if you're going to transfer something from yourself to someone else, they have to facilitate that. The facilitation fee for property is what you call stamp duty. No? Of course, yes. So if you transfer a car from yourself to someone, they charge you a fee. Yeah? So they say these are transfer taxes. Things get transferred from one person to another, you pay the tax, right? And this is how the states make their money to be able to actually support you and I. Yeah? Okay. So up to $800,000 for existing and new homes. Okay. Now, if the house price is more than $800,000, you get a small concession. It's a sliding. It drops up to $1 million, and there's no more concessions. Okay. Now, okay. No. How do you qualify? You must be buying either a brand new house or an existing house or vacant land in New South Wales. Yeah, it must be at least 18 years old. If you are a couple, neither one of you have owned a house previously. If you're single, you've never owned a house. Okay? At least one applicant is a citizen. Now, at least one applicant is a citizen. This is the issue with this one, it is citizenship. Okay? Then you have, if you're just a permanent resident, there are other things that you will benefit from. We'll come to them. Okay? Meet living in the home requirement. Okay, what this is basically, they say when it becomes practical for you to move into the house, you must move in within 12 months. Yeah, and then you have to live in it for 12 months thereafter. The reason they brought this in because people are trying to get into the market, right? Everyone trying to so there are many people who live in Sydney, for example. You can't get into the Sydney market, but you can afford to buy something in Newcastle. Right? And then they go buy property in Newcastle, okay, this is my home. But they actually don't go and live there. They actually just rent it out. Okay? So this was seen to be sort of an abuse of the system. So what they say, okay, no problem, you can do that. We give you plenty of time after the house is completed for you to go there. But within 12 months, you must go and actually occupy that property. And thereafter, live in it for at least about 12 months. If you don't do this, well, you pay back the money. We'll come to that. Yeah, we'll come to that. Okay? Now, next slide. Now, second one, first homeowner, this is $10,000, right? This one here, I think the government has been ridiculous. They really don't want to pay you this money, right? Because if you look at the eligibility criteria, I don't know how people argue. So $10,000, okay? If the house already exists, the price cannot be more than $600,000. Yeah, okay. So existing houses, townhouses, apartment already built, $600,000. In New South Wales, good luck. You're not going to find them, right? But if you're going to buy a house and you're going to build on it, you can go to $750,000. Now, this is possible. Yeah. In fact, the client that we just held up over 5 years, who was saving, he did exactly that. We'll talk about the areas where you can actually do that. Right? So up to $750,000, you can get this $10,000 here. So qualified, 18 years old, never bought a house before. At least one applicant must be a permanent resident or citizen. Yeah. So you get $10,000 there. At least one applicant is a permanent resident or citizen. Okay. You never owned a house before. Again, if you buy a house, you must move in it within 12 months when it becomes practical for you to actually move in it and live in it for up to 12 months after that. Otherwise, you give back the $10,000. Okay. Yeah. And then the house must be within this price cap. Okay. Now, from the New South Wales Central Coast all the way down to Newcastle, there are plenty of properties in those prices. And Nick will talk to you about that later. This is where we are helping the African diaspora to move to. You know, those places, 120 minutes drive from Sydney CBD. Many people today are actually working from home. If you are in aged care or you work as a nurse, that area is one of the largest employers for health services, right? So many of our clients, many of the African we see, they work as nurses, they work in aged care, and plenty of jobs on that side. So we are helping a lot of people to move there, and $750,000 doable. Okay, next one. Okay, this is an excellent one. This is the first home guarantee scheme. You know, we talk about lender's mortgage insurance. In the scenario there, was going up from about $24,000 to about $50,000 to $60,000, depending on the price you're buying. With this scheme, if you qualify for this, you don't pay lender's mortgage insurance. Yeah, you do not pay. So you don't. So basically, under this scheme, you can pay 2% deposit only if you're a single parent. That's it. No LMI, no lender's mortgage insurance. You pay stamp duty if it's applicable, but you just have to worry about your 2% if you're a single parent. If you are a couple, 5%. Yeah, no LMI. Absolutely fantastic. Yeah, absolutely fantastic. Now the conditions are the following. You have to be an individual applicant, either single or a couple, meaning you can't be a company. Yeah. Now, an Australian citizen or permanent resident at the time you enter the loan, you enter an agreement for the loan. Yeah. So what this means? I had a client, for example, who they'd received the letter that they are citizen, but the citizenship wasn't granted. So by the time the loan, we had the loan document, citizenship was already granted. You qualify. Strangely enough, when I contacted them to say my client has an email that they've qualified to become citizen, but they don't know when the ceremony is going to be held. So what happened? They said, we don't have an answer for you. Yeah. But luckily, you know, he got the citizenship, and then yeah. So that's yeah. So an Australian citizen or permanent resident at the time they enter the loan, the loan agreement, at least 18 years of age. Okay. If you are single, your income cannot be more than $125,000. Okay. If you're a couple, $200,000. Yeah. So if income is more than $125,000 for a single person, unfortunately, you do not qualify. Am I doing something? Income more than $125,000 for a single, you do not qualify. Couple, $200,000, you do not qualify. Okay. You must be intending to become an owner-occupier of the property. Okay. If you own a house previously, you do not qualify in the last 10 years. Okay. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. There's a price cap of now $100,000 in metro and regional centers. In In all other areas, it's about 750,000 for New South Wales. Still plenty of room. You know, there's room for movement there. Okay, but this is an excellent package. So if you're trying to get into the market, there's a number of things that will help you to actually get there. You may not have to pay stamp duty. You can be exempt from lender's mortgage insurance. You know, you can get $10,000 from it. So all these packages are there to help you get your foot in the door. All you really have to do is start talking to us, and we can help you along the journey. Okay, next one.
What's a regional center?
Yeah, that's one thing I've really never bothered to ask, to be honest. Yeah, but interestingly, from here all the way to Newcastle, it's now 100,000. Yeah. Because I look up a few areas in Midland, it was now 100,000, so I was surprised. I never really asked, what do they mean by this? Yeah, maybe the smaller town, but I think I will look into that question, but I've never really bothered to ask to find out. Good question. Yeah. Okay. Now, so this is, the slide we had before. We were talking about, at different prices, what you need. You see this card now, 100,000. Look at it. Before, 600,000 was over 55,000. Now it's that because we don't have the LMI. Yeah. 700,000, only 36,000. Yeah. 800,000, only 41, depending on the type of strategy. If you want to complete the house, is that housing and package is that. Yeah. So basically, you see here, up to $800,000. The government deliberately has designed, for some reason, this was unintentional. Otherwise, government generally, they want people to build houses because this improves the economy. Yeah, they want you to buy land, build on it because this improves the economy. But the way they've designed this system here, 800,000, no stamp duty, land only up to $350,000 is giving preference to complete housing within this price band. Yeah, and I think that's in my view, this is going to overheat the market. People will start, first home buyers, they will start to actually compete for established properties. Yeah, and they will get inflated. Okay, now more than $800,000 of course housing and packages are actually there. Okay, so this is the scenario where you have the first home guarantee scheme. You do not have to pay lender's mortgage insurance, and therefore your deposit requirement is significantly lower. Okay. Okay. Another scheme to help you to get your foot into the market. This is a superannuation scheme. It's called the First Home Saver Scheme. Who knows what this is? Have we heard about this before? Yes, that's what you do at the end when you qualify. But how does it work? What is it? Yeah? Who can tell me? Okay. What this is, you see, superannuation is taxed at a maximum of 15%. No, when you put money in your contributions, right? So superannuation, what happens in superannuation? Think about the way I like to explain superannuation to people. Superannuation basically is a vehicle to own, accumulate, and contribute to your retirement. Yeah, it's a vehicle. It's a vehicle. It allows you to do that. It's like, look at it as a bank account. I can put money there, and someone can manage that for me for the purpose of my retirement. Yeah, exactly. So when you put money there, there are two types of money you can put in there. One I call ATM money. So the money is already in your bank account, and you put it in there. Yeah. So that money goes in there. Is no tax. Yeah. But you can put money in super before you pay tax on it. You simply tell your employer, I don't need this much money. Because salary sacrifice, fantastic. Yeah? I don't need this much money. $10,000 a year, I don't need. Put it into my superannuation. Why would you do that? Because depending on your tax rate, if you, so for example, superannuation, when you tell your employer to put the money in super, the tax is a maximum of 15%. Minus the expenses of the superannuation fund. So the real tax may be less than 15%. Could be maybe, 14, 10, it could be less than 15%, right? So you save money there, right? As opposed to you take that money, depending on your income, your tax rate could be, say,
34.5%, it could be 37%, plus Medicare leave, it could be 45%, right? So there are significant variations in tax savings depending on your marginal tax rate. So what this system allows you to do is to put money in superannuation, yeah, and be able to take it out as a deposit for your house. Yeah? And why would you do that? You do that because of the tax savings. If you take the income as wages, depending on your income, you'll be paying tax, from maybe 19 cents in a dollar to about 45 cents in a dollar. Right? Whereas you put it into superannuation, 15% tax on it. Yeah? More importantly, the amount you put in, you get to take plus the profits. Yeah? Plus the profit. So let's say you put in $10,000, you make profit on that $10,000. Yeah? So when you're ready to buy a house, you put in all of your contributions plus the profit. Yeah? Yeah? So it's a way to help you to save money towards your deposit in an environment that is concessionally taxed. Yeah? So basically, it's a reattribution of tax from the tax office to yourself so you can use it to buy a house. Yeah? That money, that tax you're supposed to pay on your wages to the tax office doesn't go to the tax office anymore. It goes to your superannuation account. Yeah? And instead of it being taxed at your tax rate, which could be 19%, 32.5%, 45, 37, 44, or 45%, instead of being taxed at that high tax rate, it's now going to get taxed at only 15%. Yeah? So you have a higher amount. So on $10,000, you get $8,500 going into the bank account. Yeah? Yeah? Into the superannuation account. And then that money earns interest. And every year you put money there for up to 5 years. So you put this money there, and then when you're ready to buy a house, you can take it out. Plus profit.
That is just tax deferred?
It's not tax deferred. Because when you are taking it out, if it's tax deferred, if you're going to pay tax on exit, there's no tax on exit as long as you meet all the other criteria. And I can tell you, the eligibility criteria, there are nuances in it that 99.9% of people in the bank don't know. And people get caught out. Like one of the things I get all the time, a client call me, I did this, I went to my bank and I was doing this, and I was supposed to get X amount, but when my benefit was released, they took out tax, and there's a reason for that. The tax office, they have some stupid rules. These rules I view them to be stupid, but if someone who knows what they're doing, they hold your hand, you may not get caught. But there's no tax on exit. You get that money, there's no tax on exit. Yeah? You just pay 15% going in. And if you put the money from your bank account, you've already paid tax on it, so there's no double taxation. So your savings in your bank account, you can put it in super, and it will earn profit. Those profit will get taxed at only 15%. Yeah? And then you take it out. There's no tax on exit. Okay? So you can release up to $50,000 plus your profits. Yeah, you can contribute up to $50,000, and then when you're ready to buy a house, you take out the $50,000 contribution plus their profit on it. Yeah? Now, why you do it? Because when you tell your employer to direct your wages into super, you're going to pay tax 15% on the contributions as opposed to your marginal tax rate. That's why you do it. Okay. Now the conditions: you must be 18 years of age. Okay. So now what happened with this? When you are ready to buy a house, this is where people get caught out. When you are, let's say you've been contributing to superannuation. When you are ready to buy a house, the tax office say you must get a determination from them. Yeah. And you must get a determination, yeah? You must contact them, yeah, to get a determination before you sign and did the contract. Yeah? You must call the tax office, get a determination before you sign and put a date on the contract. And guess what many people do? You go to the bank, they don't tell you that. They find a house, happy, I've got $50,000 already. Go sign a contract, put a date on it, call the tax office. They say, okay, what is the date of the contract? The contract has already been dated. Sorry, pay tax. So determination basically is a piece of the ATO tells you this is total how much benefit you have. So before you sign the contract, you contact the ATO and you say, I found a property that I want to buy. How much money can I get from a super? They give you that determination before you go sign the contract and put a date on it.
If you do it in the reverse, find property, sign contract, did the contract, contact the ATO, you get back your money plus profit minus tax. That's when it becomes deferred. Yeah? And that's the little nuance that I see people, no one explain to people what's happening. But if we are assisting our client, we make sure that we do all these things. We actually have a system. Yeah.
I believe that is not fair for ATO to people. It's like they are trying to, I don't know how I'm going to put it, but if you say something, you say something. You've encouraged people to save. They've enjoyed pre-tax concession on putting additional contribution on their supernation. Then I think it's not fair if they want to take it, though that information, I don't think should be there.
Well, I don't work for the ATO, so I can't tell if this is fair or not, but to be fair to the ATO, they have a lot of information on their website. They have too much. The information on this, if you go to it will be confusing. There's a lot of information. And they've explained it in detail. But what's our problem? We do not like to read. That's our problem. And that's why you have people like myself, we spend our time, learning these things so we can actually assist people. My advice to anyone, if you're doing something that's reasonably complex, get help before you do it, because that's when regret.
Okay. So what of in a situation where you call them like you did determination, you contacted ATU, you've seen a property you like, you want to buy, you say, okay, release $50,000, and unfortunately the property didn't fall through. So what's going to happen?
No problem. When you find your next property, you go back to them. But generally speaking, they use that first determination. And this is very tricky. So let's say you get a determination today and they say you're going to get $50,000. Yeah? You don't buy that property because the contract fell over. Now you start looking for another property. Yeah? Now when you find that property, now let's say this happened today and you don't find a new property for about 3 months thereafter. Now those 3 months you've been putting money into a super. Do you think the ATO is going to give you that money in the 3 months? Most likely not. They're going to use that first determination. Yeah. Yeah. It's a very strange way of acting, but yeah, that's what happens. Well, get help to make sure that you're very serious about this property is going to proceed before you actually get a determination. Yeah. So yeah. And another thing, you must apply to get your benefit within 14 days of signing the contract. That's another one. Yeah. So these things here, if we are helping you, don't worry. We keep our team aware of this. We will manage it for you. But I'm just giving you information. It's good that you know. You must apply to get your benefit within 14 days of putting a date on the contract. So first of all, you need to let them know before you put a date on the contract. And then once you put a date on the contract, you must apply to get your money within 14 days of that date. Otherwise, defer tax. You pay tax again. Yeah. But the information is there. If you don't know, you don't know, but it's actually there. Okay. So this is what this scheme is. Okay. You must never own a home before, and your occupation. So you have to live within 12 months of it being practical for you to live in the house. You have to live in it. Yeah. Occupation for at least 6 months within the first 12 months. Okay. No. You haven't finished? Okay. Citizenship or tax residency, not a requirement. You don't have to be a citizen. Okay. It's a must make determination before signing contract. Must apply for release of benefit within 14 days of signing contract. Very important.
So I'm just going through this. So looking at maybe, I think there were 4 conditions. So citizenship or tax residency is not a requirement. And occupation for at least 6 months. So I'm trying to look at a kind of job. It's not impossible though. Like how realistic that is. I mean, for me to have worked for 6 months or within 6 months, and I'm able to pull up the amount of contribution in my supernation up to 50,000. No.
This is when you build a house. So let's say you see this. So there are many people who abuse government scheme, yeah? So they do this thing here. When the house is finished, they don't move in there, they just rent it out. So they say, no, you can't do that. When this house is finished, yeah, you must live in it for at least 6 months of it being.
Sorry. Occupying, right?
Yeah,
Sorry,
yeah,
I
you
was.
have to occupy, yeah.
Sorry, I've thought too far, right? Gosh.
Yeah. This is there to stop abuse. Government, you know, because people are like 100 miles ahead of the government. Government makes the law and they find loopholes and they come back, they close the loopholes. So the original design didn't have any of that. But, you know, they see, you know, this is being abused, they put it there. Yeah, we don't behave, so they make it more difficult. All right.
So this kind of scheme, you don't have to be a citizen or a tax residency
Correct.
before you can use this kind of eligibility to
Correct.
buy a property.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. But the bank is not going to lend to you unless you are a resident or a citizen. That's the problem. Yeah. So you have the banks. Yeah. The banks. Some banks will lend to a foreign resident. Yeah, but only 50%. 50% of you need to come out with 50% deposit.
Can you use a combination of all these benefits?
Oh yeah, and that's where we come into the picture. So we sit down with our client when we're doing your budgeting for you. We say, okay, do this, do this, do this, do that, yeah, and then we calculate exactly how much you need to actually save. So if you guys contact me, we sit down, we do a video conference. If we're trying to calculate exactly how much, we look at all of this for you. Yeah, and I think within the diaspora, people do not utilize the superannuation measure. Yeah, use it. It's there for you, and I think it's a good thing. But if you're going to do it, make sure you speak to your super fund about your super fund's investment strategy. Yeah, speak to them to say, this is what I want to do. I want a good investment strategy. You may have a split investment strategy because investments in your superannuation fall into different categories. There are those that are very risky and there are those that are reasonably conservative, right? If you're trying to do this, you want conservative or moderately conservative investment strategy because the last thing you want is to be putting money into the superannuation and lose 50% because of market volatility. Yeah, you save the tax, but you've lost it in market volatility. So if you're going to do this, speak to your superannuation fund and say, look, I want to have 2 investments in there. This is for my retirement, big one. This small one here, let's put it into something moderately conservative. Yeah. Now, who knows what is a moderately conservative investment? What does that look like? What's the mix?
Mutual funds.
No. Yeah.
Mutual funds.
Mutual funds, yeah. Shares are risky. Properties are, yeah. So your moderate conservative investment, if you look at the typical investment in your super fund, you've got shares in there, you've got listed property in there, so they do properties. Yeah. Money market, you got money market, you got bonds, you got fixed interest, right? Now your conservative investment are those that are income generating only with no capital volatility. So they are mostly your IOUs. Some investments are IOUs. Yeah. So it's a lending. Okay. Yeah, exactly. So basically they are your bonds. They are your term deposits, your fixed interest, and your bonds and your money market investment. These are your conservative investments. Yeah. If you're going to do this, put the bulk of it, maybe about, let's say about 70% in these type of investment and 30% in the risky bit, like the shares and the properties. That's what you do because you are short-term focused. You are trying to save for maybe 2 or 3 years. But if you are too far away from your savings goal, maybe only 5 years away, you may want to do something more risky. So that's when you actually talk to your bank and say, okay, that's what I want. What kind of strategies do I actually have in my super fund? And the bank have their financial advisor, they will do that. Now, I used to do this sort of advice. I find that really it's very expensive for me to provide that sort of advice to my client. I'm no longer doing it. Yeah, but I will tell you, if you have a super fund, you actually just contact your super fund directly, and then they will do it for you at a reasonable cost. They will just sit down. In fact, the industry super fund may not charge you any fees. They just mix your investments. You can also look at their booklet and see, okay, the risky investment is property and shares. Any permutations, shares are various forms and properties are very, you got commercial real estate, you've got your normal residential, but these are risky investment. Your safe investment are your cash accounts, your term deposit, your bonds, your fixed interest, and And those are your safe investments. You want to have more in that basket and less in the other basket if you're going to do this. But definitely try to use the superannuation measure. Okay. Yeah.
All right. So a question, right? This is more like reflecting on everything you've said so far and taking a look or deeper look at these various schemes you've explained.
Yeah.
It appears that it's more like a mirage for someone who is not a permanent resident or a citizen. It's like a journey. I mean, someone is just telling you, well, when you get there, these eyes look like and all that. So maybe I'm jumping the gun. I don't know. But if it's something you can answer now, you have a section for it, I leave that for you. So what is the hope of someone who lives in Australia who is not a citizen and who is not a permanent resident? And I haven't heard about all these various schemes. And he's kind of saying, how do I, like you said, the best time to move in is now.
Yeah.
So can that kind of person move in now, or a person going to the ocean?
Well, it depends on the situation, and remember, this is all government. There are banks that have their own schemes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah? But for someone who is not a permanent resident, the issue with the bank lend to you. It depends on your visa. So banks lend to certain type of visas are not eligible for loans. Okay, and if they are eligible, definitely at 50%, the bank will want you to come up with 50% deposit. So it's a whole different thing. The industry is actually structured to favor lending to Australian citizens or permanent residents, But if you are on temporary visa or student visa and things like that, unfortunately, you can still borrow money from the bank, but at a higher deposit. That's the thing. It's going to be at a higher deposit. Now, I have a lot of international students who actually come over here and they engage me from the get-go to start saving because they say, we hope that one day we will graduate, we want to have our own house, and they actually begin to actually save. And a lot of these people, that by the time they get their permanent residency, they already have the saving. Yeah. So they are actually, I can tell you, the international students that I have that actually aim to, like I have one now, for example, is going to a medical college and he's actually saving money. He's saving money. These guys are actually, because of psychology, they think I'm already behind. I need to catch up, right? They are much more disciplined than the citizens and the permanent residents. I can tell you that. I have 3 of those guys and they never default on their goals. Whereas the citizens think we've got it easy. People in Africa need money, I'll just give it to them. All right, next slide. Okay, so bank scheme. These are actually not schemes, they are policies, but they are designed to help you, right? So some banks will lend you, if you're gonna live in a house, 85% no lender's mortgage insurance, 85%. There's a cap of $900,000. Yeah, there's anyone up to 85%, you just need to come up with 15% plus cost. Yeah, they are not all banks do this, there are banks that are actually doing it. Okay, now banks have professional policies for nurses, qualified accountants, and lawyers. They will lend you up to 90%. There is no lender's mortgage insurance. And they have policies for doctors up to 95%, no lender's mortgage insurance. There is one bank in Australia that lends you up to 98% of any property you want. As long as they like the postcode, with only 2% deposit, you pay lender's mortgage insurance. But even with that, you should still be able to get your foot in the door. There's only one bank. Yeah. Now, their interest rate is a killer. No, when I say a killer, it's about right now sitting about 7.5%. But I had a very, very interesting story with a lady, a qualifying lawyer over so many years. Yeah. And the only way we could get her into the housing market was to go through this bank. So she did it. She got into her house, and 1 year later, the house went up by over 1.5, about 150,000. And we immediately refinanced to another bank. Yeah. So just get in there. Don't look at 7.5%. Get your foot in there. The market is moving. When the market moves, you come back to us. As long as your situation is okay, we'll actually refinance you.
And these schemes are only for fast home buyers with these
No.
bank schemes?
This bank doesn't care. First home buyer, anyone. As long as you are going to live in it, 98%, no LMR. Now, they have postcode restrictions. They don't do 98% on every postcode. If you're trying to buy something in the Sydney CBD, it says, thank you very much, not interested. Yeah, they have postcode restrictions. So wherever you're trying to buy, you let me know. I put the postcode on their system, and it tells me, yes, we can do in this postcode 98%. Yeah. Now, most of the time, at this general area here, no problem. Yeah. They don't like places with high density, too many apartments in one place. They don't like that. Yeah. But in these general areas here, no apartment, no problem. But if it's an area that has a large amount of apartments in unit, they don't like that. Yeah. So 98%. You need 2% plus your stamp duty. On $1 million, that's $20,000 you need in deposit, plus your stamp duty plus your LMI. Easy. Yeah. Now, one caveat is that this particular bank does not do construction. It has to be a finished house. Either the house is finished, or it can be a single contract. So you enter into a contract with the builder, they build a house, you pay a deposit now, and you don't pay anymore until the house is completed. They're happy to do that. Yeah, they're happy to do that. But no construction along the way. Okay.
Status of the kind of person that can benefit from this. You've not talked about that, like
this one. Anyone that can
citizen.
No, exactly. So you have to be a permanent resident or citizen on a particular type of visa that is not temporary.
Good.
Yeah. Like they take spouse visa. They have visa numbers. So what normally happens is that if you have a particular visa number, I will send it to the bank. This is the visa class. They will let me know I can lend to this.
Do these banks exist outside of New South Wales?
Huh?
Do these banks exist
They lend anywhere.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. All banks in Australia will lend to you no matter where you are in Australia. Yes?
I'm just, before, I mean, many years ago, I'm talking about 7, 10 years ago, banks used to lend money to foreigners. I know the tax, the interest rate is quite higher for foreign residency.
Yeah.
But what's happening now? Is it something they've completely scrapped due to government, or because the property market is increased due to when the foreigner came, foreign non-tax residents came, and then they bought properties and New South Wales properties.
Banks are still lending to foreign residents. In fact, a good chunk of my client base are overseas people buying properties for their children who are coming here to live as students. And they are not in Australia. They are actually somewhere in Nigeria or in South Africa, somewhere. They've never stepped a foot here. Yeah, you can buy property if you're a foreign resident. It's just the deposit that you require, and there's a process you need to apply to the Foreign Investment Review Board. Yeah, you need to apply. So there's a step, and we have all of that. We make the application to the Foreign Investment Review Board. We get the application, but that application is for property, and you pay for that application. If you don't go ahead, you lose the money, then you move to the next one. So yeah, banks will lend to you, even if you are a foreign resident, but you do not qualify for all of those benefits. Those benefits, yeah.
What do you say to variable interest rate? Would you rather go for, how interest rates
We'll
changes
save
based on
that
inflation?
for the general question and answers. Let's stick to the presentation. So yeah, we have that question later. I'll come to that. So we can go to the next slide. So these are just bank policies. So I don't call them schemes, it's just bank policies. So okay. Now, types of houses. Well, very simple. You have your fully detached house. Basically, a house exists by itself, doesn't have a common wall with any other houses. Yeah, that's one type. Okay. These are the ones, when you look at the growth in house prices, these are the ones that tend to do better. Australians love these properties. Yeah, fully detached houses. Yeah, and when you're buying them, in terms of the contract, you can have two types of contract. You can have what we call a single contract or one contract or two contracts. Who can tell me the difference between what is a single contract or split contract? Anyone know? Yeah. So if you're going to buy a house, you need to be aware of the type of contract that are available for a house. So one type of house is a fully detached house. House, its own boundary, maybe in a fence, no common wall with another property. When you're buying it, it depends on what. So if it's already finished, built, yeah, you have one contract, which is the contract. The contract to buy is just one contract. Okay. In some cases, it's not already finished, but the builder gave you one contract. This is a situation where the builder say, pay a small deposit now, maybe 5%, and don't pay anything until the house is finished. Yeah, we'll give you one contract for the land and one contract for the build. Yeah, we call that single contract. Single contract is where to buy the property, you are getting a single contract that covers the purchase of the land and building on the land, or maybe it's an existing house. Now, sometimes you are building a house, yeah, and in those cases, you buy the land from one party, they give you a contract, and someone else come and build a house on that land, another contract, you get two contracts. That's what you call split contract, yeah? Split contracts are in a situation where you're going to build on the land. You buy land, there's a contract to buy the land. If you're going to build on the house, there's a separate contract. Even if the seller of the land and the builder are one and the same party, they will still give you two contracts. One contract for the land and another contract for the building. Okay? Now, key differences between the two is that with the split contract, your loan is advanced to you incrementally. First thing that happens is you become a landowner. Happy days. Land is registered in your name. So that loan settles. The bank gives you the money, you buy the land. Land is registered in your name. Then the builder begins to actually build on that land. Yeah, this may take 6 months or more, right? So as they are building, the loan will increase. The loan increases because the builder will break the contract, the building contract down into 5 different stages. Yeah, stage 1, they put the foundation. Stage 2, they put up the wall or the frame. And stage 3, they enclose it, they put the roof. Yeah, stage 4, they come and build the kitchen. Stage 5, they do all the other finishes. Yeah. So what happened with this contract? Every time a stage is finished, the builder sends you an invoice to say pay this amount. You sign the invoice and you send it to the bank, and the bank pays. That stage is finished. Then the builder moves to the next stage. He finishes that, sends you an invoice. You sign it, give it to the bank. Yeah, and the bank pays. Your loan is incrementally increasing as the contract is being, as the building is being built. That's what you call a split contract. You have a contract for the land and build. Now, the title, in terms of registration of these houses as well, they are Torrance title. Yeah? I've got Torrance title, that's a spelling. You didn't pick this one up. You're supposed to do my spell check. It's Torrance title. Yeah, Torrance title. Yeah, basically it means that there is no. You are the only person registered on the title. You don't have common law. You're not sharing common law with any other entity. Okay. Now you compare that to townhouses. Normally they are built as single contracts and they are strata title. Yeah, meaning that you multiple people on the title. You have common laws with other people, and then you need a strata corporation to actually manage the conflicting interest, and they charge you a fee for that. So here, what happened there? Okay, so here, one of the advantages here, you don't pay strata fees. Who knows what is the strata fee? Yeah, the owner's corporation, someone have to manage all, the fee for that. Okay, then you have duplexes. Yeah, this here, for those of you in here who have a lot of money, this is perhaps one of the best investment strategies we know. Yeah, duplexes, they have common walls. Property here, separate titles. They can be torrent, yeah, and they are sold separately. The reason they are attractive is that if you build them, most of the time, by the time you get the key, so I'll give you an example. We now have packages for duplexes, maybe $1,050,000 around the general Newcastle area. Yeah, that's about 525,000 per unit. 1,525, 525, right? 3-bedroom houses in those areas selling for 650, 670. Yeah, so you buy for 525. Immediately when you finish, you can sell it for about 650. But they are expensive. Not everyone can afford $1,050,000. Right? Not everyone can afford it. But for those who can afford it, it's an excellent investment strategy. And we'll talk about the scenario that I did some time ago for a client where we actually did exactly that. Then you will all have units in apartments. Now, the reason, my advice to people, there are people that, the temptation in the African community is to say, I want to get into a house. Yeah? If that is not within your pocket, that's not a rational proposition. Yeah? If you can get into any of these guys in here, get your foot in the door, do it. Yeah? Get your foot in the door, do it. Don't wait. Yeah? But preferably, if you can get into that, good for you. Yeah? So we will always work with our client to see if he can get into that. If he can't, then we look at this. We generally don't like that. Yeah?
Apartment, don't you have strata title?
Correct. Yeah. There's strata title. Correct. Yeah. Okay. Any questions? Now, this is where we are supposed to be stopping because he said we'll do refreshment. We can continue if you want. It's there. I have something on it. I'm coming to. I'm coming to. Yeah. If you go through the slides, you see there. We'll come to you. Yeah. So the first part was designed for people who are trying to get their foot in the door, giving them information on what they need. The second part is now designed for people who are already in the door and you're trying to figure out what else can I do. And I've got some good things for you.
Okay. I think we'll just take 5 minutes for people to go to the toilet, do whatever they need to do, take some refreshments, come back to your seat, then we'll start the second part. Is that okay?
In the meantime, if you have any question you want to come and ask.
Okay, and please, if you're also online, I'm told we have about 23 people online. That's a lot. I wasn't expecting. So online guys, just grab a glass of water.
In the meantime, if anyone online have a question for me specifically, I can sit there and answer those questions.
Okay, so just give us 5 minutes, we'll be back. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Bye.